Welcome, everybody. This is Avoiding the Addiction Affliction brought to you by Westwards Consulting and the Kenosha County Substance Use Disorder Coalition. I'm Mike McGowan. It never ceases to amaze me how much creativity and truth come in recovery. I'm privileged to be able to have one of those conversations today with an extremely gifted and passionate woman. Jessica Guerrieri is a writer and novelist who lives in Northern California with her husband and three daughters. With a background in special education, Jessica left the field to pursue a career in writing and raise her children. With over a decade of sobriety, she is a fierce advocate for addiction recovery, and her award-winning debut book club fiction novel, Between the Devil and the Deep Blue Sea, is available for order today. And Jessica will put links on the blurb of the podcast so people can go and order it today after they hear you
Thank you.
talk.
Yeah, pre-order it because it comes out May 13th, but
Yep.
pre-ordering is so important, especially for debut. So it'll be bookstores everywhere May 13th. But
That's got to be exciting. Do you have a whole bunch of signings and appearances?
honestly, I just feel like I'm floating above my body most of the time, which as somebody in recovery, it's amazing to be floating above my body in such a wonderful sense of the
Yeah.
world. It's so different than before. But I just look, I can't believe it. Yes, I have appearances. I get to go across the country. It's no joke. It's so thrilling.
We'll get to your book in a minute, but when I do these, I always like to start with for me, the good stuff. You're recovering for over a decade now,
Yeah, I
and
am. Yeah.
alcohol, right?
Yes, I'm recovering from alcohol. So in May, I'll have 12 years of continued sobriety. And then I also identify as an addict as well. And so I have a separate clean date, which is in August of 2021. And I just separate those two out for reasons that I'm sure we'll get into.
Well, all right, let's do that because not everybody, you know this, not
Yes.
everybody does that. I kind of like that, but why did you decide to do that?
So obviously, I got sober through a recovery program, through a 12-step program, and I'm very vocal about that. Inside the program, we talk about other forms of alcohol, right? And so to me, I was hanging on to that last little bit of like not ready to be fully succumb and
Hmm.
powerless to everything. And when the pandemic rolled around, to me, it was like, well, it's the end of the world and I'm sober and I had 6 years of sobriety at that point. And I was like, okay, I have enough recovery under my belt. And all of our meetings went virtual, which wasn't great for me. I love in person. I'm a people-centered person. And so I used that as an excuse to kind of back away from the program and start to explore other sort of quit lit fiction and things like that. And inside of that space, they are more forgiving to the idea that like you can identify separately and have some people do, they don't drink alcohol, but maybe they do marijuana, and that's everyone's journey. My experience was that I can't do anything halfway. I can't put any substance inside of my body without completely overdoing it. And I needed to learn that lesson the hard way, as most addicts do. And so that's what I did during the pandemic, which is actually how my novel came to be, because I was able to write from a place of active addiction, not necessarily with alcohol, because that's what my main character's issue is, but addiction is addiction. And so, as you've read the novel, the feelings of being trapped inside that are visceral and real, and you can read that in the book.
I'm shaking my head because you're about the millionth woman to talk to me about pandemic, isolation, and so, boy, that did a number on us, didn't it?
I mean, honestly, I think, I mean, everybody had their a horrible experience, of course, but I was at home and my husband worked, he was an essential worker, so he was out of the home. I was at home with a 5-year-old who had halfway through kindergarten and pulled out of kindergarten, and a 4-year-old who was in preschool, and an 18-month-old. And it was actually my hell to be trapped at home in that way because, like I said, I need people. I have a community. I'm part of a mom's workout group called Fit for Mom, Woodland Davis, and we do motherhood and mental health where we're exercising. I do Spartans. I love community. And so to just be isolated with them, it brought out the darkest, ugliest versions of motherhood in me. And I learned that I wasn't alone in that. That was so common. And I wanted to show that. Like I wasn't afraid to show the ugliness of that because I think there's so much shame that's attached with
Hmm.
that, where it was just like, it's not okay to say these things about and not be grateful for our children every moment of every day. And I was like, but this is horrible. Like,
Yeah.
this is terrible to be, there's milestones of my third daughter that nobody ever witnessed, right? Besides us as her family, right? And that's like part of that is we live near family and we didn't get to share that with them, like her first steps and words and things that we'll just never get back. And that's tragic.
I've had a lot of people, not a lot, but I've had a bunch of different folks try to tell me and convince me that edibles are okay in recovery. And
Sure.
that's where you're going. That, those that blurring of the line, that's a dangerous little tightrope to walk.
Sure. So here's my rigorous honesty because I'm very upfront about it. My drug of choice was edibles. I abused THC. And that in the corners of my brain, I was like, had I had access to other things, granted, I also got access to painkillers, so I was mixing those as well, and that was like very telling too. But I live in California and we do drive-through cannabis. And I told myself that this is totally fine. And of course, like my addiction brain is screaming at me, like, this is not fine. You know, this isn't fine. I had friends telling me this isn't going to work. And I just absolutely took it too far, as I do. Of course, as I do. And so that to me, I think is very important because I also wanted to message people saying that, you know what, you actually can overdo it with things like THC because that messaging is very confusing that it's natural and it's all the things. If it's a substance, you can abuse it.
Hmm. Hmm. You had something very similar happen to you that happened to my mom way back
Mhm.
in the day. You had a physician that you went to, and my mom, despite the fact she was in his office from overdosing on alcohol,
Right.
he wrote her prescription for Valium.
Right. Oh, same. I mean, I literally on my Kaiser, diagnostic of everything. First of all, I was very upset because they don't say in recovery, they say like substance abuse disorder. And I'm like, well, hey, like I'm in recovery. Yes, I do have this, but I also think you guys should have a box that says checking that you are working a program because they say the same questions of how many alcoholic drinks do you have. But I end up going to my doctor and I told them after I came out as being an addict as well, I said, in my chart, please write, do not prescribe this woman anything, no matter what she says.
Oh, good for you. Good for you. Well, how did they
Because I
react
was
to
like,
that?
I cannot. And I don't want to be tempted by it. Like I need that honesty so badly. And that's the thing that keeps me clean and sober is like I need to be held accountable because if you let a little bit of a messaging come in, it just sneaks in and it'll find a way.
Yeah, oh, that is great. I can just see the double take from that person.
Of course, I needed it for I had to do an MRI and I'm claustrophobic. And so I talked with
Mm.
my doctor, I talked with my sponsor, and I said, I have to do this MRI. We have a history of breast cancer in my family, and so we're rigorous in our testing for everything. And I said, I cannot get in this tube without something. And they said, okay, but it says on your chart.
That's
And I was
great.
like, I know. I was like, do you want me to call my sponsor too? We can all get on the phone. But it was just like, I have to tell on myself. I always tell
Yeah.
on myself.
That's the kind of honesty you need. I'm going to ask you one more question about yourself because it cracked me up. Talk about the first time you went to an AA meeting sitting in the parking lot. That was so good.
Okay. So, and it's also like just karma because I have three daughters, right? And so, like, I was a tomboy as a kid. Like, I love sports. I'm 6'1", so I'm an athlete, but I also love all things girly. And so, my like youngest is my girly girl. And so, it's so interesting to me that in my head at the time, as sick as I was, I'd fallen off. I was painting my house while intoxicated during spring break when I was a teacher. And I got drunk and decided to paint my living room, as you do. And I ended up falling off a chair and I tore my knee in three places. And so I was on painkillers, I was on anti-anxiety medication, and then I was drinking 2 to 3 bottles of wine a night at the same time. So like on my like death's door essentially. And then I have this enormous knee brace. And I'm literally, and I wear like I specifically chose like a long skirt to cover my knee brace, even though like I'm hobbling on crutches. And I'm like sitting there in the back alley because like some of these meetings places
Yeah,
are not
right.
exactly the most, and I'm putting on like bright red lipstick, like because the image of myself and what I presented to the public was so important to
Mhm.
me to show that I still had it together. Literally, I was broken, like falling apart at the seams. But look, I still look, I mean, my face was puffy. I looked like a shadow of myself. And yet I still was so concerned with the image of it. Walking into a room with other recovering alcoholics, I needed to be the most functioning. I needed to be the hottest alcoholic that was in that
With a knee
that
brace.
with a knee brace, with a drinking. It's like, come on. But to me, that I can laugh at that now. Of course, I can laugh with you about that now because that is the epitome of it. That is what we are in my head, especially as a woman, and how we're supposed to present in a certain way.
Yeah.
To me, like that just says it all.
The reason I liked it is I think that that is pretty typical of that facade that people try to maintain. Let's talk about your book for a minute, because there's a contrast in your book and your other writings. When you got pregnant, you celebrated your pregnancy. Am I getting this right? On the same day you got your 30-day chip?
I did. I took the pregnancy inside of an AA. Well, I had already taken a pregnancy test and it was positive. But as a true alcoholic, I don't believe it until if something's like smacking me in the face. So I had like 15 pregnancy tests. So one of my tests I actually took in the bathroom of my 30-day AA meeting where I received my 30-day chip. My husband and I had been trying to get pregnant with children for over a year. And by trying, I mean, you heard what I was doing. I was
Yeah,
abusing drugs and alcohol. And it was like the ultimate God shot for me of,
yeah.
okay, well, here it happened. And for me, I'm very specific in this instance that I don't hang my recovery on my children's shoulders. It's not their burden to carry. And I would never say, like, I got sober for my children. It's actually like, to me, the most amazing thing that they helped me stay sober than I think I was going to because I got pregnant and I had that protective barrier, like I say, built-in protective barrier of another thing that was like, okay, I really can't drink. But like I said, I had to tell on myself because I ended up calling my entire family, all my friends, even before I got pregnant. So in my first like 2 weeks, I told everybody I'm an alcoholic. I can't drink anymore. Hold me accountable. Make sure you know. And so I needed that. I needed that because had I not gotten pregnant with my daughter, and I can say this in full honesty, I absolutely would have started drinking the moment she was born and I would have backpedaled and said, like, nope, it wasn't a problem. Nope, it was fine. And to be honest, my daughter wouldn't have survived that in the sense that I wouldn't be able to mother safely. The way that I was drinking, I was passing out, not able to come to. I couldn't take care of a newborn at the same time doing that. So, but
Well,
yeah.
compare your personal experience with that to the choice that you gave the main character
Right.
in your novel. Leah, the main character of the narrator, she celebrates her pregnancy by,
So this was very important to me. So Leah, she has 3 children as well. You'll
yeah,
see some similarities in there. She's also very tall. There's some like there's some things that we have in common. Her first 2 pregnancies, she doesn't drink and isn't tempted to drink. And I wanted to show sort of how it can slip in there
hmm
and go sort of under the radar. And this was very important to me to show because it's very authentic to the experience, at least of my experience and what I've heard in the rooms and other people's experience in recovery. By the third baby, and this was true for my pregnancy as well, yeah, I had no interest in drinking. Like it did sound gross. Like coffee sounded gross, things that we weren't supposed to have, like sushi sounded gross. So that was like a nice reprieve, right, from my mental obsession. But I will say, by the third baby, and the reason that I put this out there that Aaliyah actually does drink in her third pregnancy, she has like a bender.
Hmm.
Um, I wanted to show this because it is very I wanted to take this shame away from this idea of the choice of it, given that women, if you're struggling with addiction or even if you're not, and this whole narrative surrounding shaming women around drinking with pregnancy or not drinking, and oh, it's even if I'm at an event and I'm not drinking and people don't know, they're like, oh, are you pregnant? And it's just like, why is
Yeah.
this all
Hmm.
associated with this? To me, it was really important to show that and to take the shame away from it because for her, it was like a foregone conclusion.
Hmm.
She was already doing these things and didn't want to be doing them. It's not that she didn't love her children. It's not that she didn't want to be pregnant. It is a force greater than yourself. And for me, that was really important to show. And I recognize that in myself because by the time I had my third and I was nursing her, I ended up nursing her longer than I did with my other ones because it was another protective barrier, right? It was another way of like being like, no, I can't drink. And so actually when I got done nursing and done having children, I did the steps again with my sponsor because I was like, I feel like a newbie because I'm coming in this at a completely different place with number one, all these children now, and I don't have a protective barrier. And so for me, it was really important to put that in the novel in that capacity as well.
You mentioned Leah's struggles, and you communicate that so well in the novel. And your literary agent said that you write pain so beautifully. That's a great way to put it. And I'm not a literary agent. However, she's right, man. You can feel it in the novel. I, as a non-novel writer, when you're writing that, do you feel the pain? Like when you're writing the pain, do you feel it? Are you reliving part of it? How much is autobiographical?
Yeah, that's such a good question. I just listened to the Audible version. So our narrator Mia Hutchinson Shaw does an incredible version. Like her acting in it, she is Leah. I actually got to pick from a cast of people and I had them read and I listened to the first chapter of my book from all of these incredible voice actors. And then when I heard her voice and I heard her do it, I was like, Leah, is that you?
Wow,
Are
wow,
you
that's
here?
great.
Talk about out of body, viscerally feeling it inside my body. So I spent all weekend doing laundry with my earbuds in, and so I actually to experience my book that way, and then hear my own pain and my own reliving of that, it took a toll. Like
I bet.
it feels like a gut punch. And I came away from it being like, wow, this is gonna be too much for some people. This will be like too heavy for some people. But I like came in crying to my husband because he was working in his office, and I was just like, I'm so dang proud of this,
Mm,
so amazed that I'm still here because this pain it was so real at the time. I don't feel it anymore, but it is the nostalgic ache that I talk a lot about in the book. Glennon Doyle talks a lot about this like ache as it associates with motherhood and addiction and longing. And I really like tapped into that idea because that's what it is. It's this like all the ways ache is one of the quotes that I have in there. And it's true about motherhood in general. It's just hard no matter what. It's hard if you're in recovery. It's hard if you're in addiction. It's hard if you're not. It's just hard.
and by the way, if you're listening to this or watching it on the YouTube channel, there's no spoilers here. I'm not going to
No.
give away the end of the book, but there's themes in the book. And it's not just Leah's pain, but the pain of family is
Mm.
so relatable. And I found myself just going, yep, yep. Secrets, Jessica, family secrets just are so, so dysfunctional.
And everyone has them, right?
Yes, right.
So So for me, one of the themes is there's the mother-in-law trope, right, that I use of everybody's heard the version of the like the terrible mother-in-law and this idea. And to me, I wanted to play off of the idea that the main character was going to pick a villain that was not herself. She wasn't the villain of her story. And so I've gotten a lot of feedback, positive feedback as it relates to this unique idea where I take the villain in a different direction because it's not the like typical evil mother-in-law. And that was really important to me because I married into a very established family and I had the most wonderful mother-in-law in the entire world. She unfortunately passed away tragically, unexpectedly during COVID.
Mm.
And I actually wrote this as a love letter to her, which her family now reads it and everybody reads it and knows like she was never that person, but I villainized her and other people in my life because they were the problem. I
Yep.
wasn't the problem. And so ultimately, for me, the love letter that I wrote to her is the relationship between Amy, who is the sister-in-law, and the mother-in-law
Mm.
characters. And they're able to come together and find an understanding. Uh, uh, and so that's where it's this tie-in. But yeah, it's the family secrets. To me, those are my favorite books to read in the whole world. Like complicated family dynamics. If that's in there, sign me up because everybody relates to it. I come from a big
Yep.
family. I married into a big family. There's just something so fascinating about the ins and outs of it all.
And silly at the same time, because
Totally.
you mentioned how she villainizes Christine, right? Or the mother-in-law. Well, she also does that self-focus. There's a scene in there, this is no spoilers again, where Lucas and his brother, that's her husband, is building the restaurant. And she makes a comment that he can see everything in the restaurant before he even pounds the first nail. How come he can't see what his wife is becoming? Everything is about her. When you're in the middle of that addiction, right? It's so you.
Right. And yes, it's so egocentric, right? You can't, I mean, it goes back to like me putting on lipstick before
Yes,
coming.
right.
It's exactly that, where it's like you cannot see what's truly going on. And so, one of the things that is so interesting, and it's the difference between when I see that people either understand my book and are very much afflicted or have someone they know about addiction. Some people will come back and say, Leah is very unlikable. And I don't understand how she could be so selfish. And I'm like, wow, you must not have
Right.
anyone in your family who is an addict or an alcoholic because that's the nature of the disease. But the thing is it isn't the person because you're talking with me right now, and this person that I am right now is not the person that I was 12 years ago. I mean, yes, we are talking all about me, and that's like my ego loves it. I'm like, yay, let's talk about me. But I'm not focused on the thing that was all consuming, which was how do I get access to drinking and drugs by any means necessary, by hurting anyone necessary. Instead, my focus now is like, how do I help? How do I get this message out to more people? And how do I offer a sense of hope? Because I'm living proof that recovery is possible and I want to be that. And so, yeah, yes, Leah is an incredibly selfish, self-centered, but at the heart of it is from her addiction. And that is what I want. I wanted to show that viscerally and make it very clear that it isn't her at the core of who she is. She
Well,
suffered.
and at the same time, you can't help but feel for Lucas.
Right.
What, what
And
a, what a
yeah,
weird place to be. Like, no matter which way he leans, he's going to take crap. And if he
right,
tries to ride the middle, well, that never worked, right?
right.
So what's a
And
spouse to do?
I love that you brought that up because my favorite reactions have actually been like husband and male reactions. A lot of my best friends have read my book and then their husbands go on to read it and like One husband like wrote like a book report on it and sent it to me. I was like, oh my God,
That's great.
you're
Did you
you're the
correct
best.
it? You're an old
No,
teacher. Did you
he
correct
just
it?
like no, it was like introspective book report, like how this will help men and husbands. And I'm like, amazing. But I feel like it is such a hard place to be as a partner on the other side. It was hard for my husband to read this. Obviously, a lot of the arguments were like verbatim arguments that we had during my addiction. But it's a lose-lose. You can't win, right? My husband never presented me with an ultimatum. He never said, you need to stop drinking or else. But what he did say to me that will forever have changed the course of how my sobriety ultimately went was, I don't feel safe having kids with you like this.
Mm,
And to me, like there, it was no greater way that he could hurt me. And it wasn't him. He was saying, this monster is making it so I can't. And of course, that my like, inside addiction, your resentment is like, oh, how dare you? And it's your fault, and it's your mother's fault, and it's everyone else's fault, right? And so I had to hear that. And I learned through that, like, and actually told myself, I was like, oh, well, then I just won't be a mother because I want to drink more.
mm.
And then that was actually the first statement that I made to myself that scared me more than anything and said, I think something's wrong because I wanted to be a mother.
Well, right. And don't you think that's the place where people look and say, oh, if this Diet Pepsi is more important to me
Right.
than my relationships, that's kind of messed up.
That is such a hard pill to swallow. Like,
Yeah, it
excuse the
is.
metaphor, but it's such a hard pill to swallow because it's like, we as a society, we want more of everything, right? And we're so fed that way. And so to come at it from a place of like, oh no, you can't do this anymore and you can't safely, a place of no, like you truly have to change and your mortality is looking you in the face. That is hard. It is really, really hard to come to that. And to go back to your point about the partner and the spouse is that no one else is going to do it for you. Like if my husband could do recovery for me and save my life, he would. He
Hmm.
absolutely would. And it's not about love, right? It's not about how much you love someone. You can't love someone into recovery. My children don't keep me sober. I make a conscious choice to stay sober. So that's the thing. And I think that's the hardest part where people are coming to they have to get there on their own and what does it take and it takes what it takes for every person.
I love how you talk about being honest and forthcoming because it keeps you on the right path. You also wrote an article that I liked, how Dak Shepard's relapse, the actor, podcaster, how Dak Shepard's relapse is saving my sobriety. How did his disclosure of him falling off for a little while help you?
Yeah. So when I listened to his, because I love Armchair Anonymous and Armchair Expert and all of that, and when I listened to his relapse episode, and I was in the middle of using drugs during the pandemic, and he said all the things that was currently happening to me, where it was like he also separates the two out, recognizes, and he doesn't like he gave himself permission to say like my sobriety date isn't changing, which is up for interpretation in the AA community.
Right.
It's of course. And to me, first of all, that gave me a lot of hope because I was like, I earned that sobriety. I haven't drank alcohol, and that feels really important to me. But it's the hiding in plain sight, is what I call it. And so when I wrote that article and I put it out in the world, I made the claim that he was keeping me sober because he was being so honest. All the while, I was actually doing exactly what he was doing, which was hiding using drugs. And so I wanted to show everyone, again, putting on the lipstick before the meeting, I wanted to show everybody that I was doing great. And you need to see that, like, I'm a working mom of three at home in the pandemic. Yes, I'm struggling, but I'm still doing it all and I'm still sober. That's important for you to see. And so he was saving my sobriety, yes, but I needed that kick from him of saying, and like actually looking myself in the mirror and being like, yeah, you're sober, but you're not clean. You're
Right.
not clean.
Right. So what's your clean date?
My clean date is August 6th, 2021. So I did 1 year inside the pandemic of pure, you know, and then that my clean date is the day after I overdosed on THC tincture, where I hallucinated, was completely out of my mind. And my husband was there for that and witnessed that unfolding. And the next day, we had a very similar conversation that we had 10 years before. And he just said, "What's going on?" And I said, "Turns out I have a problem with everything." Because he knew I was experimenting with other things. And that was the other thing is I was being very forthcoming. Like I talked to my sponsor, I talked to my doctor. I said, "But we're in the pandemic. So like rules don't apply. I
Right.
can still take my anti-anxiety medication, but I will also try this new natural TH, no." And so that was part of the hiding in plain sight as well, of like, if I'm putting it all out there and I'm super upfront, but then in reality, I'm sneaking, I'm hiding, I'm lying, I'm doing all the same things that I was doing with alcohol. I'm just doing it with drugs now.
You're a walking, talking, writing example of your last of this quote I'm going to give you. I'll let you walk away with this because I like this. You wrote that the stigma associated with addiction is never going to go away as long as we tiptoe around the topic and continue to attribute it with shame.
Yeah. So I'm working on my second book right now. I
I
um
was
I
going to
got a
ask you
t
that.
I got a 2 book deal from HarperCollins when I signed Between the Devil and Deep Blue Sea. And so I'm working on that right now. And I'm very much talking about the subject of shame and specifically with women. And so to me, it's very important to be forward facing when it comes to the truth about what addiction actually looks like. There is so much confusion about it. And to me, it was really important not only to write a book about it and show, especially with mommy wine culture and the push that we have where women are allowed to use alcohol as a crutch and just like, well, motherhood is hard. Here's wine, which, by the way, is deeply rooted in misogyny because we don't say that to men. Like, fatherhood is hard. Do you need a beer? Do you need substance to get you through this? So that's where my like feminist rant comes in, but it's so important. And to me, I think it's all associated with shame because we're so tempted to shame women into submission, shame them into feeling badly about a disease that I have.
Yeah.
I will never feel badly about that. I will always be honest and upfront about it because every single time I cannot tell you the amount of people. I just handed a 18-month chip to someone who she messaged me to say, like, I think I have a problem with alcohol because you put it out that, like, this is what it sounds like. Why would I hide that if that's going to potentially help to put somebody on a path? Like, if I have a small part in that, I will be very loud and I will shout it from the rooftops.
Good for you. I lied. I have one more question for you.
Yeah.
Does your husband surf?
My husband doesn't surf. My sister surfs.
Hey,
Um,
you gotta read the book if you to get
Yes,
that.
and my first love surfed actually.
Oh,
Like my teen love, and he is actually a professional surfer now. And I was just talking to him the other day actually, and I was like, "Oh, he's like, when are you coming to San Diego on your tour?" I was like, "I'll be there." Honestly, surfing to me in this book, and I loved the idea in general, is like surfing, running, sex, drinking, any form of escape the main character could explore, anything that is outside of herself, she would do. And that to me was a very important theme because we're so consumed with escapism and like not feel this. How do we not experience the hard and what can we do? And so what I ultimately want to convey is that motherhood is not a thing that we need to like the hard isn't things that we need to escape from. Like we can exist inside the hard and still be okay and still find joy in it, even in the hard. And so, yeah, surfing was the perfect using the ocean and the metaphors and all of that. So, yeah.
It's great. The book is Between the Devil and Deep Blue Sea, and it's terrific. Pre-order it. It's on the bottom of the podcast. Just thanks for your work. When you do the second one, I'll invite you
Yes,
back on. Uh,
please. I would love to.
for all of you listening, we always appreciate you listening. Listen anytime you're able. Until then, stay safe and surfs up.